Friday was not a particularly good day for the regime. It didn't start well. It started with this, and I think we did a segment on it on Friday. So George Galloway, the old Scottish firebrand, he got elected for something like the fifth time. I mean, I'm losing count at this point, but he got elected for the fifth time with the Muslim vote of Rochdale. And he secured a pretty thumping win. He got something like 12,500 votes, getting him a 6,000 majority. Now,
hi folks, sorry to interrupt the video, but I just want to direct your attention to the aesthetics range of merch that we have on the store. These are beautiful images that I think work really well as posters or mugs. So if you want to support us, going over to the merch store at shop.lotus.com is easily the best way other than signing up on the website.
Majority. Now, 6,000 majority back in the day would have been considered a marginal seat. But these days, nobody can be bothered to vote because nobody believes in the political system anymore. So actually, 6,000 votes is a pretty thumping majority for this stage in the game. Anyway, so he wins. The regime doesn't like that. By lunchtime, they'd moved on to this guy, Sam Melia, apparently a far-right activist who was jailed for some far-right stickers. Very serious case, this one. So Judge Tom Bayliss said the publication of this kind of material is corrosive to our society. The stickers contained, and note this carefully because I will be showing you the stickers in a moment, these stickers contained ethnic slurs about minority communities which displayed a deep-seated antipathy to these groups. So bear that in mind when you actually see them.
Are we trying to guess the slurs?
Well,
leave yours down in the comments below. What slurs would you like to see next week?
Don't do that, they will be deleted.
That's funny. Would you like to see us only on Odyssey? Shall I get Harry to guess some slurs?
No. Well, I can think of a few.
Let's stop there. Anyway, so Judge Bayliss said, for the first time since the 1930s, a real risk of gross, potentially violent anti-Semitism is being normalised on our streets. It has been used before to tear at the heart of Western democracy. It must not be allowed to do so again.
So this guy's been organising the Palestine protests as well as the stickers. That's pretty.
No. This guy's just
like George Galloway. He was playing both sides, I assume.
Well, he's not.
No, he just. I will show you in the stickers in just a moment. But it's very interesting what the judge said, that he's harking back directly to 1930s. So basically, the argument is that this guy, for these stickers,
what
needs to go to
was
jail.
This guy like reposting on the stickers the full list of Nuremberg laws, 1935 or something?
Well, I will show you them. But basically, the judge's argument is this guy needs to go to jail, otherwise Germany's going to invade Poland again.
They've been plotting for decades, we all know.
Yeah.
First, the stickering began. I said nothing because I didn't care.
The judge said, I am quite sure that your mindset is that of a racist and a white supremacist. You hold Nazi sympathies and you are an anti-Semite. So,
hang on.
So was he imprisoned for the stickers or for the mindset behind the stickers?
No, the stickers were declared legal.
So it was the mindset.
And the messages on the stickers were also considered legal.
And what did these messages include, or are we going to see
we
some
come
of
to that.
Did those messages actually include anything anti-Semitic?
We will see them.
All right,
we'll see how bad they are. But this is the judge. That's the guy who thinks that you need to be in jail if you think something that he doesn't approve of. And like I say, it is thinking something.
People listening, we should explain. That's him outside the Nelson Mandela statue, I presume in South Africa.
Yes. So
Nelson Mandela, he was that terrorist, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, the guy who belonged to that group that blew up a grandmother and a grandchild at a train station with a phosphorus bomb.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
are they the ones currently singing "Kill the Boer"? Is that some other radical communist faction in South Africa?
I think that's a sub-offshoot of that group.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, you know how terrorist groups are. They go silent.
I've read articles about Mandela where it talks about that whole thing and tries to brush over it. And they're like, oh, well, the party doesn't actually condone this sort of thing. Although Mandela and his wife both said that they wouldn't not condone it.
His wife has very good necklaces, I hear. So anyway, so this is a picture of Sam. So he was noted by the judge as being an upstanding member of his community, a good man and a good father, law-abiding taxpayer. There's Sam with his young child. He now will be in jail for the birth of his second child because of things that he thinks. So these stickers are going to be pretty awful. You've got to agree. There we go.
That's not that bad.
Is this all of the stickers?
Yes.
I was
reading out the quotes. Reject white guilt. It's okay to be white. We will be a minority on our homeland by 2066.
That's ONS projections, isn't it?
White lives matter. Stop anti-white rape gangs. Love your nation. I'm noting a distinct lack of ethnic slurs.
Well, yes. Well, the judge did say ethnic slurs, didn't he? But that doesn't seem to be on the list. So basically, the judge is saying that if you believe any of the following, let's just reframe these. If you're white and you're not guilty about it, if you think it's okay to be white, if you agree with the ONS, if you think white lives matter, if you want to stop rape gangs, and if you love your nation, then you belong in jail.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years prison.
Yes, and I would only say to the audience that if you feel a deep sense of despair at this, an utter sense of betrayal and dejection, just understand that your nation has been stolen and run by criminals, and they have successfully achieved their goals, because that's exactly what they want you to think when you see this. So, yeah. Go ahead.
What is that to say, frankly? I mean, I'm sorry, but the British regime will put you in prison for saying it's okay to be white.
Yes.
For 2 years.
Yes. And I will just remind you again that all of these were deemed truthful and lawful. But we have to stop Germany from invading Poland again. And things that
you've got to go to prison for 2 years.
That's the issue with these.
Ruin
judges.
your life. Your life's got to be ruined. No one else's. No one else who actually commits crime or anything.
Oh, the judge also admitted that no hate crimes were committed as a result of this.
Right. So what this is a political jailing. I mean, frankly, this is how this should be considered. A political activist who is advocating for civil rights. It's okay to be white. That statement there. That's a civil rights phrase. He is going to jail for advocating for civil rights for white people. Because in this country, you can be discriminated against and have been if you try to work for many government departments, never mind the private sector. If you went for the intelligence services, you would be rejected on the basis of your skin color.
If you try and join the BBC, they've got lots of programs that only accept minority applicants.
And he, in his activism there, is saying it's okay to be white, and he gets 2 years in prison.
Yep, and as it says on the screen right here, the reason why was because he wasn't wanted the sentencing to act as a deterrent to other people. So this is the actions of an occupying force. As we say, the regime. This is the actions of a hostile regime, which is hostile to the native people. You've got to put up with being an occupied territory, because otherwise there's the worry that an occupation might come in that would actually care about the native people of this land, and we can't be having that.
Well, quite right, and acts as a deterrent to other people. But he was jailed for his beliefs, so it's to act as a deterrent for people believing the same thing.
The belief being it's okay to be white.
Quite extraordinary. I mean, I did a tweet about this, and before anyone comments, yes, the framing is deliberate. There's a certain framing you can use to get traction amongst the boomercons, because I wanted this to have as much traction as possible. But I pointed out that you've got these guys on the left here driving around London shouting, F the Jews, F their mothers, rape their daughters, and these guys received 0 days in jail. And actually, there were plenty of other examples you could have used. I mean, there was a guy just the other day who raped a 12-year-old and was basically let off 0 days jail.
Yeah, he was part
but the guy on the right,
group or something.
He thought the wrong things. He agreed with the ONS and other heinous crimes, and on that basis, he was jailed for 2 years and is now going to miss the birth of his second child. Let's go back to the tweet. Yes, so this one, I framed it that way to sort of get maximum views, and that's had almost 1 million views at this point, and even Elon responded to that one. So hopefully that's got a little bit of traction, and we can have some justice for Sam coming up. That would be nice.
Does he have the chance to appeal?
I don't know. I don't know the details of it, actually.
Yeah, if there's anyone fundraising for any appeals process or anything, if he can get some kind of legal representation.
I think his wife Laura Towler or something like that is fundraising. So I mean, I'm sure you can find that if you wanted to contribute to that. But anyway, the point is that a strong regime does not act like this. You know, a strong regime wouldn't even have to respond to this. There'd be no need to it. So they're acting fearfully and panicky. At which point, Rishi Sunak enters the chat. He came out and said that he was going to give a 5 p.m. podium conference outside of Downing Street. Now, that was interesting because the podium is normally only ever brought out for one of two reasons. One, the Prime Minister is resigning, and two, he's calling a general election. And he actually came out to say this in response to the events of the day.
Modern country we are.
Let me just
both want to set Britain.
Sorry. Okay, let's listen to
Islamist extremists and the far right feed off and embolden each other. They are equally desperate to pretend that their violence is somehow justified, when actually these groups are two sides of the same extremist coin. Neither group, except that change in our country can only come through the peaceful democratic process. Both.
So a quick point on that. He says that change can only come as part of the democratic process.
He couped the government.
Well, there is
the man speaking couped the elected government.
Well, there is that, but also the group that this Sam guy is a member of, I think it's Patriotic Alternative, they've actually applied to become a political party 6 times and have been rejected every single time. Mm-hmm. So here's
it's worth pointing out as well that he's saying that there was some kind of violence involved in this where there was none. None whatsoever.
Well, no, he was talking about the other side of the coin, which he's decided to lump together with
But yeah, once again, by lumping together, he's implying to the normies at home who don't pay attention or read anything past the headlines that there was some kind of violence involved in this when it was violent stickers.
Exactly right. But the whole framing of you're only allowed to protest through the ballot box, but we're not going to let anyone into the ballot box who we don't approve of. So basically he's saying, you're an extremist if you're left wing and you don't vote for Labour, or you're right wing and you don't vote for the Tories. In all other circumstances, you're an extremist. Let's listen a bit more of this drivel.
Loathe the pluralist modern country we are. Both want to set Britain against Britain, to weaponise the evils of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hatred for their own ends. The faith of Islam, peacefully practiced by millions of our fellow citizens, is emphatically not the same thing as the extremist political ideology of Islamism, which aims to separate Muslims from the rest of society.
However, if you think that white lives matter, then you're exactly the same as Moustache Man in the 1930s. So he delineates on the Muslim side, but of course, the far right is the real problem.
Islamist extremists and far-right groups are spreading a poison. That poison is extremism. It aims to drain us of our confidence in ourselves as a people and in our shared future. They want us to doubt ourselves, to doubt each other, to doubt our country's history and achievements. They want us to accept a moral equivalence between Britain and some of the most despicable regimes in the world. They want us to believe that our country, and the West more generally, is solely responsible for the world's ills, and that we...
Yes, and I'm sure bombing everywhere has had no impact on any of this.
We, along with our allies, are the problem. In short, they want to destroy our confidence and hope. We must not allow that to happen. When these groups claim that Britain is and has been on the wrong side of history, we should reject it and reject it again.
Again, this is a rejection, speaking of rejections, of the wishes and concerns of the vast majority of the native population of this country. It's a weak and pathetic move, like you mentioned. It's panicky.
Yep.
This is the actions of people who know that they're not really in charge, that know that they don't really have much time left in power, so they're going to come out and try to, appeal to the nation? Appeal to the nation by insulting normal people.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he's insulting everybody who believes those, and there was nothing on that list that was objectionable.
Let's be clear about this, because the inclusion of the far right here in his speech is not really relevant. This was a decision made at last minute. Because you may remember Joe Biden did something similar a while back.
Yep.
In which he just threw in the far right as part of the people celebrating
Yep.
October the 7th. It was like, what? I mean, the far right in the UK, even if you want to be as broad as these guys are, which, their version of far right includes most of the country, the political power the far right has, or the actions it's taken, are pretty impotent compared to the power possessed by every other group. Even the Islamist guys in London right now contain more power. So he wanted to make a speech about Islamist extremists. And because you can't just stand there and say that maybe Islamist extremists are extreme, he had to throw in the far right there. Because none of the points he brought up had anything to do with what you could even call the far right. The idea that the far right think that we've been on the wrong side of history throughout all of our existence. I mean, what? No, the far right thing which is buggered up since '97, which
pretty much.
And also the far right, as he's categorizing it right there, would not exist had they not been importing these Islamist extremists into the country against the will of the people for decades at this point. We were never asked. It's a very powerful statement because it's true. We were never asked for any of this. We were never asked if we wanted Rishi. The party members of the Tories were asked if they wanted Rishi, and emphatically they said, no, bugger off
and he got
somewhere else.
Anyway.
Rishi, you didn't even want to be here until it was politically convenient for you. You were about to move to America.
Now, he didn't say it in this particular clip, but it's a longer speech, and he goes on to say that they're going to be creating a task force, what is basically what we used to call a secret police. That's what a task force is, to go after two groups, Islamic extremists, and by that he means people who are a threat to MPs in Westminster, because apparently MPs are now getting bodyguards because of the sort of Islamic marches that's going on outside them.
I think that's £39 million, if not more than that. I covered it last week.
Yep, probably right. And this task force, or this secret police, as they should probably be called, is also going to go after right-wing extremists, who are, of course, the people who will point out to you that this task force will not lift a finger to protect anybody else apart from the regime.
And again, the primary focus will likely be on those far-right extremists, because while the Islamic extremists pose a physical threat, the actual native people of this country who care about their history, who care about the future of this country, are the ones who pose a political threat.
Well, they'd be given a mandate to go after both, but because one of those groups barely exists at all, they will have to widen the definition until it includes, basically everybody with the right of centre view. I did like Burnside. He's a brilliant poster. He came back with this meme. You guys are probably too young to know this one. But we asked 100 people which group represents the biggest threat to Britain, and you answered the far right. Is up there, I'll give you my money myself. So if you
name the group, sincerely, if you actually sat and thought about the far right group that is threatening England, there is no English Liberation Army. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, quite. Now, I won't go into it here because I haven't got time. But on my Twitter, I did a thread explaining basically why all of this is happening, and that thread's doing quite well. So go and look at King Bingo _ and there's a whole thread. It's my pinned post that will break down exactly what's happening here. But I haven't got time to go into that now.
There are two King Bingos. One is a crypto scanner, so make sure you go for the correct one.
Yeah, well, the other one's more likely to follow you, so choose wisely. Yes. So anyway, George Galloway then responds to Rishi's Twitty twat, whatever his name is.
Twitty
the Indian midget who's the regional manager for Britain at the moment.
Sincerely, can we just take a moment to appreciate how illegitimate that man is?
Oh, yeah, he's the regional manager of England that nobody asked for.
And as an effect, that speech, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but most people took it as, oh, bugger off. Not the context of the speech. The content of the speech wasn't even that interesting. Yeah. It was just, who cares about what you think?
Exactly. Well, George Galloway has a quite, to be fair, quite a good comeback to this, which is, well, yeah, but I was elected and you weren't. Let's listen to this.
A lot of people have just watched what the Prime Minister said. This is your opportunity to respond to what he said. Well, he says that there are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. He is implying you are a divisive figure. Well, you have run an election campaign that has tried to appeal, particularly, not entirely, to one section of the community.
Who won the election? Me or Rishi Sunak? I've got the Democratic mandate here, not Rishi Sunak. He didn't even come second. He was lucky to come third. So don't put to me statements made by Rishi Sunak as if I'm supposed to be impressed by them. He don't impress me much.
We at Sky have spent some time today on the streets of Rochdale, and there are people who say that they feel intimidated by people like you and the people that have supported you.
I have just
and they have pointed out that you have concentrated your campaign on foreign affairs, and they worry that Rochdale will not be the winner.
That's my answer to you. I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people on the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Why are there people on the streets worried?
There may be people who didn't vote for me.
Just note that Sky News will never ever do a segment where people are worried about immigration.
Of course, also note here, this is actually a fantastic visual representation of the difference between somebody like Galloway and Sunak. As much as I would disagree with the personal politics of somebody like Galloway, he does represent a sort of figurehead for the people around him, because you can see organically people are gathering around him, and if you play the rest of the clip, you'll see that he has the charisma to get people to laugh and agree with him on the fly. Rishi Sunak has to go around with a police escort wherever he goes, because he is that unpopular.
I don't agree with Galloway on much, but yeah, he has presence. I mean, he's actually a politician.
Who are worried, but the majority, the thumping majority, voted for me. I've got the mandate, and I'm going to the House of Commons with it.
And it's a mandate, you think, to do what? Because there are people that listen to what you say about whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening slogans.
We had this conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's
Don't keep
statement.
telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
Do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister. And guess what? Millions and millions and millions of people in this country despise the Prime Minister.
Quite right.
And once again, he's got a crowd gathering around him, naturally, all agreeing with him, because he's saying exactly what all of them think. Once again, whether or not he's a socialist or an Islamist, he's saying what we're all thinking. And the fact that he has the balls to go on Sky News and just signal to everybody, I am not part of their crowd, is something that we've all been crying out for.
Well, and the framing coming from Sky News, which is, the Prime Minister has said this, why aren't you being deferential to it?
Because he's an illegitimate dwarf and I don't care.
Well, exactly right. I mean, another poster posted this meme, which I think is exactly right. Rishi Sunak's political compass. He's up there in the far left, authoritarian left, and everybody else is far right. I mean, he's basically now just calling most of the people who can't be bothered to vote Tory anymore as far right. Anyone with a slightly left of centre view, and then that judge, which we showed you earlier on, will happily put you in jail for it. It's a panicked uniparty. You're allowed to vote for Lib Lab Con. If you want to protest, maybe you can write a letter to the Telegraph or the Guardian. Otherwise, that's it.
I think it's important to point out as well that left and right doesn't really mean anything in our current political order anymore, because really what you're asking for is globalism versus some form of nationalism, localism, anti-globalism, whatever you want to call it. Because even within a nationalist system, you could still have a left or a right. I don't know anything about this Sam guy's personal politics if it comes to economic matters, if it comes to welfare state or anything like that. But I do know that he cares about his native people, his local area, and that's enough to mark him out as an enemy.
I think that is the distinction. It's the distinction between the globalists and the nationalists, and that's why I look at somebody like George Galloway, and I disagree with him, but at least he is a fellow nationalist.
He also did.
I mean, he's for the Nation of Islam rather than us.
I don't know. He did Mog Humza Yusuf in quite a beautiful way as well by posting his big blue eyes, saying, "You're not a Celt like me, Humza," which was pretty based. I'm not going to lie.
Apostolic Majesty sums it up perfectly with this, where he says the sole purpose of the Conservative Party is to ensure that the right cannot exist in Britain. That is the function of the Conservative Party, to make sure that there is no right-wing party. They're just body blocking a genuine right-wing party. It's all they have ever done. They were turned into a explicitly Blairite party under Cameron, and it's what they are. So. I also just want to pull apart the equivocation between the sort of right-wing extremists, and of course, there's no mention of left-wing extremists. But there is a really fundamental.
Would Islamist extremists count as that? Because once again, they're not left-wing for themselves, are they?
They kind of gravitate to it, but there is a fundamental difference: is that if you are left-wing or if you are Islamic, you are allowed to organise yourselves. If you are right-wing and you attempt any sort of organisation, you will immediately get arrested. And that is
just saying it's okay to be white. 2 years in jail.
Yes.
Why? You put up some stickers.
Yes.
Oh, no. Because when you were putting up those stickers, you were thinking to yourselves, yes, I will kill the Islamists somehow.
But it is a fundamental power imbalance. The left and the Islamics can organize, and the right cannot organize without getting arrested. They cannot form a political party. They can't do anything. And this is apparently supposed to stop us or stop Germany from invading Poland again. Now, you've done some work on this, Harry. Is it the case that 1920s Germany was a land of milk and honey and everything was right, and then one day, for no reason at all, a bad man came along?
Well, in the mid 1920s, from about 1924 to 1929, there was what was called the Golden 20s, the golden 5-year period of Weimar Germany, which didn't really last long. It was artificially held up by a change in the currency after hyperinflation and ended at the onset of the Great Depression. But even during that time, they were experiencing some very unfavorable conditions. Birth rates were dropping. By 1931.
That sounds familiar.
They had the lowest birth rate in all of Europe.
Yes.
The government was filled with communists. The Social Democrats who were in charge were a Marxist party, and they were trying to liberalize. They wanted to get rid of all censorship, which meant even just local censorship, saying, please don't advertise pornography here. Berlin was filled with pornography. Theatre performances, where the theatre performance was literally watch people get naked on stage, etc., etc. Child prostitution was a huge problem throughout Berlin and other parts of Germany. Basically, everyone was in rough sorts. But even then, they had a different situation to us, primarily because, yes, there were Marxists in charge, but due to the political situation that came out of the First World War, you still had a conservative old guard who held a decent amount of political power. You still had people like Hindenburg in places of power, mainly because communist revolutionaries led by people like Rosa Luxemburg had attempted to start a Bolshevik revolution in 1918, 1919, and the Social Democrats, to maintain power, had to ally themselves with the Freikorps and the conservative factions of the German military to put those revolutions down. They took over Bavaria. Karl Eisner, was that his name, Callum? You probably know. Karl or Kurt Eisner was a communist revolutionary who actually did manage to get a successful revolution going in Bavaria. The Freikorps put it down after a few months. Obviously, Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht also had a communist revolution attempted in Berlin. They got put down by the Freikorps. So there was different situation down there, which was the conservative factions.
You sound quite well read on this. Maybe you should do a premium stream on it at some point.
I will be doing a video on it soon enough. I've got a script written. It's just going through. Hopefully, we'll be going through an editing process soon when somebody gets around to bloody looking through it.
But
eventually.
But I think the sort of general point is, if you keep running your society in a way that is utterly antithetical to the just basically the way of decent living for the majority of population, eventually a backlash will come, and that backlash will not care where it goes because it is so angry.
Let's just put it like this. There were parts of the population in Germany at the time who were the natives, who were basically on starvation wages, unable to make a decent living, having to literally prostitute themselves and their entire families to foreigners after they'd already lost a humiliating war where the Allied powers had decided that we're going to destroy your economy on purpose and manufacturing power. And there were other, shall we say, foreign parts of the economy who were living it up and basically in power, the Marxists, the Social Democrats.
And this would be my message to, Judge Bayless or whatever his name is if you think you can break the cycle of history by repeating all of the mistakes that were made in the run-up to the last time, then it's just going to backfire on you dramatically.
What happened was the National Socialists were basically a banned party, especially in Berlin for a time, and it was when they got unbanned and following the Great Depression that all of a sudden they shot up from barely even a party that anybody knew about outside of Berlin and maybe some parts of the country to all of a sudden shooting past every other party in the Reichstag.
Because it had got to the point where people were so angry. But, they're just repeating the same mistakes all over again. On the Islamic front, this is a question that I put on this Brokenomics to Robert Spencer. Let's have a quick look at his response to me when I asked him this question about why are politicians behaving like this?
Why is it that Western governments and European governments are just so completely out of line on this?
Well, it does have to do with the immigration issue and the fact that now there's a substantial population of Muslims in Britain, as well as in France and Germany and Italy and Sweden and so on. and they are afraid. The British government right now is afraid of the Muslim population. And this is very clear from all kinds of things. Not only is there the banning of me and other people who are critics of jihad and Sharia, but there's also very recently all the demonstrations and the pro-Hamas demonstrators. They are climbing up on statues of revered figures of English history and putting the keffiyeh on them, or putting Palestinian flags in their hands, and the police do nothing.
So this is Robert Spencer, a major scholar of the process of jihad, who's tried to warn this British government for years, and for his troubles, he got banned from entering the country. Just before we came on air, we saw an announcement that the British government is going to be banning Islamic hate preachers from entering the country. 10 years after they banned people like him, people like Lawrence Others and others who tried to make exactly the point that those people made 10 years ago. Now they're doing this. And the thing is, Robert is exactly right. The British government has imported millions of people with incompatible views, and the British government is afraid. And they have no idea what to do. So they're going to do the only thing that they know how to do, which is go after anyone with vaguely right of centre views, because they know how to do that, and the real problem scares them too much.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content on the site, such as Brokenomics series, which this episode is looking at your mum. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.